Okay.
So now, be careful, and now Maria.
Yay!
Let's try it again. Maria, fun, please.
Okay, brief delay, but I promise it's worth it. We're going to talk about the space program. We're going to start with this guy. This is Yuri Gagarin. He was from Russia, and in 1961, he became the first man in space. Soviet Union sure did know how to pick a cute cosmonaut. Following in his footsteps later that year came my man from America, Alan Shepard, second man, but first American in space. And, scarcely 8 years later, Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon. Likely humanity's next first will be our first person up to Mars, and who knows who will get to take that flight. Could be anyone in this room. That is a truncated history of humanity's glorious space program. Inspiring, isn't it? Well, we're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to talk about a different space program. Now, most of you probably know that humanity was not the first species from Earth to take a trip up into the stars. We were sitting animals for a long time before we decided to take the plunge ourselves. We sent up monkeys, and dogs, and fruit flies. We're not going to talk about any of those either. We're going to talk about bacteria. Yes, let's hear a wave. Okay, bacteria were very likely the first organisms from Earth to go to space. Because for a very long time when we were sending stuff up, we were not sterilizing any of it. So it's very likely that a lot of these little fellas took a strange trip up into the stars without us even knowing about it. And even today, with the cleanest of clean rooms, it's anybody's guess who might float onto the launch pad right before the big event. And now you might be thinking, who cares about a bunch of dead bacteria floating around in space? But don't be so hasty. Some scientists actually speculate that life didn't even arise on Earth, but rather it just floated here on a piece of space ice or an asteroid, and then we ended up from that. Nobody really knows. What we do know is that bacteria are incredible survivors, and they seem to have no problem hanging out in microgravity, which is actually turning out to be kind of a problem for us. There it is. This is a valve from the wastewater system on the International Space Station. See all that brown gunk? Do you know what that is? That's called a biofilm. Now, a biofilm is formed when a bunch of microorganisms, like bacteria, but fungi do this as well, choose to work together and overcome their differences to create something where they can live in a place that any individual would not be able to. So a single bacterium would be easily swept through one of those holes, but if they all work together, they can lay down a scaffold that will bridge those gaps and allow them to pull nutrients straight out of that wastewater. And at this point, you might be thinking, that gunk does look kind of familiar. And you would be right. You see biofilms all the time in your daily life. That gross ooze in your sink that even an entire bottle of drain cleaner just will not get rid of, that's a biofilm. The plaque in your teeth that your dentist keeps bugging you about, that's a biofilm too. Super interesting fact about that one. You have both good and bad bacteria in your mouth and in your plaque. The difference is what they eat. So the good ones eat super boring stuff like spinach, but the bad ones eat fun stuff like donuts. The problem is, if you feed the bad ones instead of the good ones, eventually they'll eat your bones. So that's something to keep in mind. In fact, your entire body is full of both good and bad bacteria, and you take them everywhere you go. The astronauts took them all the way up to the space station, which is how they got into that wastewater in the first place. And once they form a biofilm like they've done here, they can be almost impossible to get rid of. Let me give you a bit of an example. I work on this critter. This guy is Pseudomonas Aeruginosa. He's this lovely green color. I work on him because he's a really important human health concern. So, for instance, my sister works as a nurse in a hospital, and she just saw my little friend a couple of weeks ago on somebody's catheter. See, it loves to form biofilms in places where your immune system has a really hard time getting to. Places like open burn wounds that haven't healed yet, or the lungs of people with certain diseases. It's very bad. And I think about aeruginosa in this context primarily, in a medical context. But in fact, a lot of studies have shown that it does super well in microgravity. So at this point, I think we should take a step back and talk a little bit more about how a biofilm actually forms, what's going on when it happens. And I thought it would be really cool to allow one of my little bacterial friends to tell you her story. So I have here the bacterial log from a friend of mine. Her name is Jiggly. And she's going to tell you a little bit about her experience forming a biofilm. Well, let's see what she has to say. Bacterial log, stardate 273.2. I don't know how long I've been out here in this vast, turbulent maze, swimming. So much swimming. My flagellum aches from the strain. I've escaped the phage for now, but they're still out there. I have no visual capabilities. I'm swimming on sensors alone. I hope it will be enough. My proximity sensor is going off. My flagellum must have hit something. I'm orienting myself carefully towards it now. Closer, closer, docking achieved! A new world! But can I stay? I long with every ribosome in my gelatinous body to stay. But if there's nothing to eat. Bacterial log, stardate 273.4. It's taken some time, but I finally managed to finish production of my type 4 pili. With these in place, I should be able to move across this surface more easily. I'll have to go slowly, though. I don't want to miss anything. It's awkward moving upright like this, but I know that if I decide I can't stay, I'll need to be in launch position to leave. Hold on, my sensors are picking something up. I'm circling it now, trying to get a better read. Is it? Could it be? Exopolysaccharide! There must be others nearby! I have to initiate crawling so I can move more quickly. Dropping over onto my side now. The sensors off my starboard bow are going crazy, so I'll follow those. Now they're all going off. My quorum sensors! Other bacteria must be nearby. I pause, thinking about what my sensors are telling me. The other bacteria are laying down a lot of exopolysaccharide, so there must be something here that they like. Phosphate! My sensors have detected phosphate! This is perfect. A phosphate mine, running water, maybe a decent school system. The perfect place to raise a family. But I need to start building. First, though, I have to release my flagellum. Thus, I relinquish the power of flight. Bacterial log, stardate 274.3. The biofilm is coming along. More bacteria have joined the cause, and the layers of exopolysaccharide continue to grow thicker. This is the scaffold that will keep us safe. To strengthen it, I've taken to excreting... there it goes. To strengthen it, I've taken to excreting gooey DNA to trap invaders like phage. 5 generations of my family are here now. We swap DNA and tell stories in the evening. We still hear reports of the surface dwellers being taken by antibiotics, but because we are towards the bottom of the biofilm, we are safe. Those high concentration of antibiotics can't reach us. Only the low concentrations penetrate this low, which allow us to adapt to them and grow stronger. My free-swimming life is nearly forgotten now. I am home. What an exciting tale, and all completely true. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're up against, though, when it comes to our space-faring little buddies. And the interesting thing is, our bodies have a super hard time with microgravity. Our bones start to deteriorate, and in particular, our immune systems go crazy. They just don't work very well when we're up there. Bacteria, on the other hand, do amazing. Not only do they often become more tolerant of antibiotics, they can become more virulent and form these incredible 3-dimensional biofilms. And you can imagine that could be a really bad combination for a long-term space mission, to have the people doing a little bit worse and the bacteria doing a little bit better. So that's something for us to think about in the future. But we can even take it a step further. There was a space mission a couple of years ago called Expose R2. And the goal of this mission was to evaluate how different species of organisms dealt with extreme environments. Within this mission was included an experiment called BOSS, which stood for Biofilm Organisms Surfing Space. And what they basically did in this experiment was they took a bunch of bacterial biofilms from different species, dried them out, and put them in these boxes that you see here, which they then put on the outside of the International Space Station. Now, the really cool thing about this experiment is that other than keeping these bacteria from floating off into the stars, these boxes provided no protection. For 672 days, these bacteria were subjected to the vacuum of space, cosmic radiation, and temperatures ranging from minus 20 degrees Celsius to 57 degrees Celsius. For almost 2 years, they were under conditions that would kill a human in like a minute. And you know what happened? They brought them back down to Earth, rehydrated them, and some species actually started growing again. Now, the implications of this experiment for space exploration are huge. Any other organism we find on another planet, like Europa or Mars or something like that, could have been just something we seeded there, maybe decades ago. There could already be life on Mars, and it might just be from Earth. Thank you.
Maria, fun.
Do I stay up here? Do I go back? Do I go over there?
Stay here, but it's your applause. Not mine.